Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Great Island Advisory Committee to order on my son's birthday, September 18th, at 6:05. I would just like to say that we have 99 people on the bus. We have reservations for 99, and we have space for 9 more people, so whoever is interested in signing up for the bus for Saturday, we still have a few spots left. And talking about Saturday, the committee will be attending that event. A lot of us, I believe. We could have a quorum, but it will not be a meeting, so we do not have to call it, and we won't be conducting any official business. So that's what I have there. Department of Public Works, Ed?
Sure. I'm just get a little closer, that's all. Can I hear you? Okay. Good evening. So just some topics to get you updated on what's going on the island. Trees posted for removal were on the final decision was posted on the 16th. We have a 10-day wait period to see if there's any actual formal protests made through the state superior court. So we're waiting on that right now. We have started to schedule the asbestos removal at the stables and at the Pink House, house number 18. The orchard and spot area soil remediation is tentatively scheduled for the end of September, around the 29th, 30th. We do get bids for the orchard project to come in. They'll be opened tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Sorry. The tenant in the Pink House will be moving out as of October 1st. And Tony's already been through the facility with the renter.
That's the Pink House?
Pink House, correct. To check on any issues, damages, or anything like that. And it, from what he said, pretty much has a clean bill of health with regards to our renter. And I think the last topic I have is just a quick update from Craig. He couldn't be with us tonight. He will be hopefully at the next meeting to answer any of the questions you have, but just a quick summary of his activity. So as he writes, Redness and Mead has actively been working on and supporting the Reed Hildebrand consultant team since July 22nd, 2024. Most recently, Craig held a Zoom meeting with Jeremy Ginsburg and the Reed Hildebrand team on September 12th to discuss land use regulations applicable to Great Island. They discussed the flood hazard regulations, zone designations, options, several potential uses, coastal area management and environmental regulations, and finally the 100-foot coastal setback regulations. And that was from Craig. And that's all I have for you, unless you have any questions. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, when do you think you're going to be done with the putting out the wood chips?
What I'm trying to do right now is make the bridle path safe to use on the 21st. It may include not being completely finished with the path covered with wood chips, but the areas that will not be done will be safe to walk on. So we've touched all the areas that I thought were high priority with regards to softness of the ground, saturation, or areas that had out sticking rocks or ruts and things like that. So we took care of those areas first.
Is there a thought that we may not put wood chips on the entire path? Like Dan and I were out there looking at it this morning, and I think exactly what you just said is completely accurate. Like parts of it are high and they're just pretty dry already,
Yep.
And it's pretty nice just walking on the soil, like the compacted soil. Even I thought even nicer than walking on the wood chips in a little bit. So just a thought that I don't know if there's a reason why we need to put wood chips on 100% of the path.
When was the decision made to put wood chips on the path?
Well, you know what, we're going to talk about that during access. So.
No, I was just saying that I was just curious in terms of
last meeting, because I didn't start doing it until after that. Which it was to make sure that we had safe access to the bridle path, and I really didn't think putting soil there or stone dust or trap rock or anything else was appropriate. This seems to be doing what it's supposed to do, which is make it safe to use for this opening on the 21st for people to use and walk around.
So the wood, is that just like temporary, like we're just putting like what?
It
down or
is
grind up
what
just
it is
for
what
this?
it's good for, which is a temporary use, and it kind of fills in the holes, and it's natural.
They
It's-
disintegrate within
disintegrate over
a year or
two.
so, but,
Yeah.
but I just thought, you know, anecdotally, just that if we end up not putting them down on the entire thing, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
I have a walkthrough tomorrow, and again on Friday, and we'll see how we are. We just want to make sure it's safe.
There's some nice historical, like in the stretch that doesn't have wood chips right now, on the dry part, that's kind of a straightaway a little bit more at the start of the second half, if you go counterclockwise. You can see, you know, some of the edging from the original, back when it had some more ornamentary edging and stuff to it, which is kind of fun.
It is, unfortunately, it's also the trip hazards I'm a little concerned about, because it's uneven. To walk on them it's very uncomfortable. And so I'm just trying to make sure that what I put out there is that I let you folks know that I've adjusted to the best of my ability to make sure it's safe.
And do the softness of the wood chips, does that make it less likely to trip on? Or like, because you still sink down in those, right?
A little bit. I'd say give it a couple rain, it'll be as hard as the stuff that you're walking on right now.
Okay.
But I will look out there, and if I think I can pull the plug on there and pull the guys off of that, I will. So we've been getting the wood chips for free, so it's been a benefit.
Good job on
All
that.
right, thank you.
Okay, next item is review and approve minutes. We had a special meeting on July 22nd, and I took a look at these minutes. The only thing I caught was Becca's name is spelled wrong. Has anyone else seen any errors, omissions, changes?
I was in attendance for, I think both meetings were missing my name on them.
Okay. Okay, so with that correction, may I have a motion to approve the minutes for July 22nd? Bruce moves, Mike seconds, all in favor? Okay,
Is that for both minutes?
no, that's for,
Oh, sorry.
and then for the regular meeting on October 21st, or August 21st, we'll add Kip's name again. Any other additions, corrections, omissions, changes? No? Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to approve with that correction? Mike moves, Bruce seconds? Okay? Okay. All right. Next item on the agenda is access, and I think we've been talking about access for a while. And I went back, and I just want to thank actually Jim for, at our July 22nd meeting, which we just approved the minutes at, mentioning opening up an early win, a low-hanging fruit would be opening up the trails. And that's what we have done, gone forward with that to try to make that happen. But I know that there's a real appetite for opening up other parts of the island. And I want to thank Bruce and Dan and who else? Mike, sorry, for going out and taking a look and seeing what we can do to make those other parcels that Becca mentioned at our last meeting safe for our residents. So looking at things like tripping hazards or signage, that kind of thing. So tonight, I would like us to discuss opening up the Bridal Trail. We need a formal vote on that. And also looking to how we can open up these other areas, because I know there's a real appetite for that, and the more we get people out there, the more people will be, the more informed people will be, right? Even the trail, it's the island as as Jim pointed out, actually, it's like two different islands, right? And so if you're on the bridal trail, you see a totally different aspect of the property than if you're not. So, I kicked that off, but,
I mean, Monica, if I could, and actually, I think it's a great idea. I'd like to make a motion to add an item to our agenda after number 5, after Beck and the team kind of get done with their presentation, but before we adjourn, to discuss and possibly take action on recommending changes, if any, to the Board of Selectmen to be made to their February, I think it was 5th, access rules that they approved.
I'm sorry, what was the motion?
I'd like to make a motion
Uh-huh.
that we add to the agenda after item number 5, an agenda item that would say, discuss and possibly take action on making recommended changes to the current, quote, early access rules for Great Island, and make that recommendation to the Board of Selectmen.
Sure. Anyone want to second that? Mike? Okay. All in favor? All right. I would like to ask for a motion to discuss and take action to request the Board of Selectmen to approve the bridal trail at our meeting on Monday.
So moved.
All right, Bruce?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have 2 motions on the table for that. Okay,
Well, just before we vote on the motion, can we just have discussion on that item?
sure.
So what I was going to suggest, or that I think that would be one change to the access rules. So just as we try to limit, should we have, before we vote on this motion, do we need to have a vote motion to make all changes and then have a separate motion to make one change? Are they effectively one and the same?
Well, not really, because if we vote on the bridal trail, we can implement that immediately, and that's a pretty simple change. And I think that if we vote on the other wording, that's going to take us a little while to figure out, and we're not going to get it done tonight.
Well, that's already on the agenda now. We just voted that on to the agenda between item 5 and item 6.
Okay.
So there's now an item added that is to discuss and possibly take action on making a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to make any changes to the currently approved sort of rules for early access.
So if I understand you, you're just saying, if we decide to do something in that item 5, then we would have one recommendation to the Board of Selectmen
Yes.
instead of 2.
Yeah, and that recommendation could be to open the bridal trails. That recommendation could be to open the polo fields, or could be one of many. But I guess what I'm saying, that would be a change to the early access rule. So I guess my question is that already on the agenda, or do we need to have it twice?
I would think because the timing is different on the 2 suggestions, that why not have it to be 2 separate proposals, or 2 separate motions?
Right, because we're talking about one, so far tonight, we're going to talk about one specifically, the bridal path. And when I look at the early access that, our board voted on February 5th, it's the first sentence is public access to Great Island is limited to pedestrian use. Presumably, the language that would be added would be bridal path. And then if there is anything else that we talk about tonight that we feel like we want to also recommend to the Board of Selectmen at our next meeting, we could do that, I suppose, and the Board of Selectmen could say, there was another area, okay, yes to that, or no to that. I mean, I'm just thinking procedurally, but you're certainly, whatever we want to add, we'd have to recommend to the board that they add it to that first paragraph as a discrete area. And I don't know what other areas we want to talk about tonight, but I mean, I'm certainly happy to talk about them.
So in those rules, there was quite a few rules in February, I think, and so I think I hear what Monica's saying, which is we're probably not ready to make an action on like opening the front lawn today based on what we saw this morning, right? If we need a week or 2 or something to fill gopher holes, or, like there's some minor stuff. that needs to be done, and signage needs to be put up to say that the danger.
Signage we already have for the bridal trail, so.
Well, we're not talking about what to open up, I think we're just.
Yeah,
This is customized.
so we wouldn't go there.
Yeah.
But if somehow, I think we said no food, like you can't bring food on the island, or no picnicking, or whatever, like, there was a lot of stuff that we said. So if we talked about that in item 5 tonight, and we decided to make a change on that, and say, then theoretically, could we vote on that to say you could have food?
Well, the motion that was added was to make any changes to the rules for early access and use of Great Island that the Board of Selectmen passed on February 5th. So that could include everything from food to bridle path to stepping off the paths to dog, like anything. So so that's what's currently on the agenda now, is between item 5 and item 6. So I guess the question is, before we vote on also adding a bridle path vote, if we're already voting on making changes to the early access rules, is that effectively encompassed in that?
Well, there's a motion for that, right?
Correct.
But it doesn't mean that we're actually going to do that. So,
But we're in the discussion portion of that motion right now, right? So we have to decide whether we're going to move into a vote to say, let's vote on opening just the bridle path and sending that recommendation to the Board of Selectmen for their next meeting, or whether this discussion yields that we don't want to vote on this yet because we think that item number 5 may yield additional things that need to go to the Board of Selectmen, so we could table voting on it until later in the meeting? I don't, is that?
Correct. There's already an item added to the agenda that says vote on making any changes to the access rules. Certainly, opening up the bridle path, I think, would be making a change to the access rules. So that's already added to the agenda. So now the motion on the table is, should we also add an item whereby we make a change to the rules to open up the bridle path? I think that's the motion that you made, right?
I'm just confused at this point.
yeah, I am too.
I'm just trying to figure out if it's logistics, that we're saying we only want to send one recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, or if we vote on this motion right now and approve it, but then we go to this last item that we've just added, and we say, hey, let's change the February rules to be a little bit different, that do the Board of Selectmen just get 2 recommendations from the GIAC?
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with having 2 separate?
I don't know, I'm just saying, is this just a logistical thing?
Let's ask John.
Can I make a recommendation? Just vote now on bridle trail access. It's already been decided. There's signs, that's easy. Jim's right, we do need to have an access discussion, and that's been added to the agenda. So I would quickly vote on bridle trail, like Becca go, and then have this access discussion, because we have limited time.
And then there's no harm done if there's something that comes out of that, right?
Okay.
So later in there, so if we voted no on the bridle path, later when we get to the item I just added to the agenda where we discuss everything about the access rules, we could add it then as well, right? Okay.
But if we voted no, why would we add it back then?
I would vote now. Move
Yeah,
on. You've got
okay.
time.
Just to repeat, we have a motion on the floor to discuss and take action on a request to approve the Board of Selectmen's approval, to open the bridle path to resident access. Do I have
was just gonna say-
any more discussion?
Yeah, I was just, because we do have a published document with rules, we have signs with rules, and we're going to have to take a quick peek at those, possibly make some updates. I think with the bridle path, those changes should, I don't have it in front of me, should be fairly minimal, because technically, it says the paved roads. I think we could make some really quick and easy changes. I know with previous iterations, we did have town council look at it. So I think that's something we can do quickly and get that published online for people.
But we
The
actually-
other changes, I think, we're going to have to look at that document in a more fulsome manner and really think about how we flesh out some of the specifics. So I would think if we just do the bridle trail now, we can make some quick changes and get those published, probably in the amount of time that Ed needs to finish it up.
Well, I guess if we're going to vote on that now, can someone just explain exactly what's being changed on the access? Because if we open the bridle trails, how do you get from the paved lot to the bridle trails?
It's
It's right there.
The
right
the
there.
paved road?
I mean, are there any other changes that need to be made
No.
in connection with that?
No.
Okay.
I would just add to the motion that when it's going to open immediately upon the completion of the installation of the signs and the DPW's
Approval.
fixing the road.
And then
Or selectmen's
can we
approval.
just, when we circulated the signs to the whole committee before they were sent to the sign printer, I think we should do that again. I think we probably have a pretty good idea of what they need to say, but I think they need to say something like, this is an unpaved surface, and so that people know what they're getting into when they head down that path.
Right. Right, and you know what, we did have Dan, Lori, and Jeff did take a look at the signs, and,
Yeah, I think the wording's perfect.
Okay.
So we're opening up, what's being proposed is to open up the Bridal Trail, and is it gonna have the same language where you can't step off the Bridal Trail, you need to stay on it?
it says, what does it say, Tony? Please stay on the path.
To protect the flora
Protect-
and
yeah.
fauna.
Yeah,
What do we use, Jeff? Flora?
I think it was
Flora and fauna?
natural habitat.
Or natural
Yeah.
habitat, yeah.
and not appropriate.
Surface is uneven,
for-
not suitable for strollers or wheelchairs.
Right,
Okay, good.
pretty stock.
Will somebody circulate that?
Here it is
document?
right here. Please stay on trail to preserve natural habitat. Path surface is uneven, not suitable for strollers or wheelchairs.
Good.
Does that work for everyone?
Yeah,
Okay,
just so that we don't get pushback that, someone wasn't told and they got out there and they were over their skis, so to speak.
right. The cross-country ski?
Yeah.
Okay,
Put one of those signs with a slash through the middle.
okay, I might have to go over the video, but,
So is the motion to add this to the agenda, or are we just actually
No, we-
voting
No,
on it?
we're voting on it.
We're voting on,
Okay,
voting
so-
to recommend to the Board of Selectmen that the bridle paths be open with appropriate signage as administratively determined, because it's really two things. It's like, as a body, we're saying to the Board of Selectmen, you know what, we think it's time. And obviously, and I think when we discuss it as a board, they'll be, all right, well, we feel good about that it's safe, and there'll be appropriate signage, et cetera, et cetera. And then the board will do it, and then it'll be up to our administrative offices to have the appropriate signage that maybe, we've recommended or not. But it's really, it's two things. We want to open this, and obviously, we're going to have appropriate administration of that path.
right.
Well, then, somebody just procedurally, since the motion was to add something to the agenda, someone should withdraw that and just make the motion to add it. It's to add the actual, to recommend to the Board of Selectmen if that's what the motion is. Because right
Yeah.
now, the motion on the table is to add an item to the agenda.
But we already voted on that.
We already voted.
Yeah.
That, we added the item to the agenda.
Yeah, that was
already.
yours.
Then we
This-
went back and
Yes.
made the
If you-
motion and the second to vote on the first item.
Right.
Right?
And the motion on the floor right now is to request the Board of Selectmen, approval to open the bridle path to resident access.
And just add a date.
And
Yes, and you know what,
can we do it by Saturday, since we're gonna have a lot more people?
Selectmen
It's
don't.
We're not going to meet until,
You said yes.
yeah, we're not meeting until Monday.
Oh, until Monday, okay.
Monday.
But Saturday,
Okay.
Monday, we're very close.
Okay.
Can we
At
vote?
yes, at the earliest date that is deemed safe. Okay. May I,
So is the motion on the table?
motion's on the
Okay.
table. Bruce?
So
I think it's already been
we were
seconded.
discussing
So I would just say
Okay.
it's discussion. I'm probably going to vote against it, only because I want to discuss it and the other things when we have the broader discussion now after item 5,
Okay.
and talk about total access.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, all in favor? Okay, who moved it? Who
I
was
think
for-
I moved it, Lori seconded it, or vice versa, one
Okay.
of the other.
We'll give it to you.
It was one of the other.
I
Okay,
think you were a little ahead of me.
okay, opposed? Jim? All right, motion passes, okay. Next item, can we go to Becca? Jim? Jim, are you okay on that? We'll go to Becca, and then at the end, we'll
Yeah,
come back to yours?
Item 5 now.
Okay,
right? Yep.
okay, go ahead, Becca.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to activate my screen for all. And hopefully it works. Tends to take a minute. Oh, man. Sorry, I was trying to. I think I need a second. Sorry, guys. Not sure how to add it more. I think it's just going to do the same thing. Do we have anyone who can?
Bruce?
We always look at Bruce.
There it is.
Sorry, I know, we can see
Just
it.
Make it bigger.
maximize that, and you should be good, because that's your whole desktop.
Command F.
Then you have
Is that Windows
No.
or Mac? It should be, drag it more to the middle, because then you'll see the rest of that window.
No, why is it
It's not letting you drag it.
No. Even when I, maybe I have to exit full screen. Okay, hold on. Sorry. Apologize, everybody. I was trying to avoid this. Now it's like frozen down. Close it. Maybe that'll help. Try again. Okay. Thank you for your patience. Okay, seems like progress, right? Yes. Okay, thank you again. So, much of what we're going to discuss this evening is familiar to everyone, which I think is a good thing, given that at the moment what we're trying to do is be very focused on the upcoming conversation for this Saturday. I think the only person who's with you tonight is me, because the rest of the team is focused on getting ready for Saturday. And I just want to acknowledge and thank Tony, Ed, Mike, many of the people that work for the town and for the committee who have just been sensational and responsive, and I feel like have done everything they possibly could to make this event a success and to make our work go well. I think we did want to start our conversation today on the subject of access, and just want to recognize that every moment we get to spend on the island makes us want to spend more of our time on the island. And so I think the sense of urgency, which is being expressed by some of the committee, particularly tonight, and not just tonight, about opening up more as much as we can, as fast as we can, we really understand that. At the same time, we have been doing everything we can with our team to try and really understand what is true about the ecology, where things are sensitive, where they've been disturbed. We've had really helpful conversations with some of the coastal and other regulatory entities about restrictions and safety hazards and some of their concerns. Monica has forwarded, and not just Monica, others have forwarded relevant studies about the island and concerns. And I will share, this is like not a nice thing to talk about, but there is a lot of concern about different kinds of fecal matter, either coming from boat or from activities related to fishing or some of those attractions, or from dogs or other. So it's like issues about how, when you open up access, humans have traces and their pets have traces that have all sorts of complicated consequences. And so we are just I just want to share, like, we're in the process of gathering all the information related to this, so that whatever recommendations we end up making, and it's too early for Children to make any more recommendations than we already did, we all have confidence in all of the people who are in favor of either being able to bring their bike or their dog, or have full access to the shellfish beds, or are really concerned about the amphibians or the nesting birds, and making sure that all of that habitat is sustained. All of those different people's needs are recognized when we weigh through them. So we are in the process of going through that. Today, that's, I think, probably the most exciting topic that we're going to talk about. We will talk briefly about the website domain. I think our hope is that we can at least open up the one domain that we have bought, with the idea that if potentially we want to buy more and expand where the website is, that's something that we can do, but we'd like to have at least one website active. So we'll talk a little bit more about that and probably have some discussion. Briefly, we'll touch on the focus groups, and then I'm going to have a little exercise or piece of homework for you guys to take with you to think more about the focus groups. We'll spend some discussion time on the survey. Many of you have really helped us with the survey, but we want to walk everyone through that tonight in advance of Saturday and the launch of the survey. And then we'll have some discussion. I will start that discussion with talking a little bit about what you can expect in the next meeting that we have, and sort of where we're headed in terms of deliverables. So on the access front, I think there's no question that expanding access is a huge priority for this committee and for the town. As we shared in our last conversation, there are several areas that have been identified as basically being very prime for opening up with relatively low risk, and that risk has been assessed, and I think we do want to have a conversation together about those areas particularly. I think our sense, this is a drawing that we did sort of thinking about that conversation, and the sense that when you open up in aggregate all of these experiences on the trails in these new areas, much of the most wonderful experiences on the island does enter sort of a quick win territory, but we're potentially not at risk of compromising some of the things that are a little bit more vexed and need a little bit more study. So I think our sense is potentially for discussion tonight, and I know there's a motion now, I think our sense is that we know that you've gone out and you have insurance reports and the lawyers are weighing the pros and cons of opening up all of these areas. As a landscape architect, our whole team feels like these areas are great for you guys to open up, so long as you can get through the thresholds of your insurance and your legal experts. I think our sense is, from the feedback that we've had, which I was just previewing, there are really considerable risks to habitat if we do have anyone going off the trails or dogs going off the trails. And so we would like to have a little bit more time to have our ecologists and biohabitats and get through the focus group conversations with all of your experts in town before we end up making some recommendations. And even when we make those recommendations, the way we'll make them is we'll say, look, these are the pros and cons of, for instance, endorsing a dog-friendly policy for the island. I was sharing with Monica that sometimes in situations like this, where you end up is that you say, yes, dogs are welcome, but during these two key nesting moments for these species, because we've learned that you have them in abundance and this is fairly exceptional, we would recommend that you don't allow dogs in March and June or something on the island. So we may end up with something like that, and even when I was sharing that when you have a policy like that, it can actually raise awareness around some of the species that you have that are really exceptional. We're just not there yet. We're still in the learning period. So just to add a little bit more detail about some of our reservations about going ahead and sort of wholesale opening up the whole island. And I'm happy to respond to questions and contribute to the later part of the conversation if you would like me to. In terms of the website, I think the website and your digital kind of welcome and broadcasting on social media and web is something that is an important part of access, and we do feel like if we can at least have some piloting of this that launches on Saturday, we think it would be really beneficial. And I know that we had a lively conversation, and I think it was a great conversation about potentially buying or opening up more URLs, and we support that. But we don't want to delay launching at least a website if that's possible, even if we end up sort of phasing this out and having another one that comes and takes over.
What do you need from us in order to have approval to launch the website?
I think we are happy to go ahead as long as I don't think this is something that requires a motion or a vote, right? So I think if we can just say that Retail Rent would like to do that on Saturday, and that's good, that's great. I think we have talked about it.
What is the website?
The website
Is that the only
is-
page, or
it's-
is there?
No, it has, it's quite simple at the moment, but it has sort of some pages on the history, it has the whole process that we're involved in, more information about that, and then it has sort of categories, like this is the ecology, this is water, the same simple categories that we're using for the public event on Saturday are on the website as well.
You had a mock-up in the last presentation that was more of an active homepage, and now you see this sort of...
The active one, since you voted on the brand, is what will be.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that's going to replace...
Yes, that will replace this homepage. But I think the domain that we'd like to go with for the moment is the greatisland-ct.com. And as I said, I think we're very happy to add more and to phase this out, but we would like to have something that we can go live with. Yes, comments?
I'll just follow up on the last meeting. What I was saying was just that I don't think we need to buy any more domains. I mean, that's like the marketing people at the domain registrars, like GoDaddy, you go to buy one and then they want you to buy 6 more.
Yeah.
And they tell you that they're not that cheap. The first year is this or that. But like, we own DarianeCT.gov. And the way that domains work with domain name services, DNS, is that we can put anything in front of DarianeCT.gov for free. So if it's greatisland.darianeCT.gov, and the user experience with browsers and the way that the web works today is that when you type something into the browser URL address bar, it's automatically hooked up to your search. So that in the old days, you had to get the URL right? Otherwise, you'd get like a 404 and you get an error. Today, that doesn't happen. Today, it gives you it's like you entered a search into like Google or Bing or whatever the heck you use as your search engine. So people aren't gonna go type www, like very rarely will they do that. They're gonna type Great Island Darien. The first hit is going to be the authoritative website because of the search engine optimization that happens. So I don't think we should spend a whole lot of time buying domains or trying to teach people how to get there. I think that the authoritative...
Do you agree with that?
I totally agree with that,
Okay.
and I think if we can do the, basically greatisland.darien.cd-gov, we should just do it.
Yeah, and it's,
Okay.
A, it's free.
Okay.
B, it's
Everyone
authoritative.
agree?
Yeah?
Yes.
I
Okay.
just don't know what you have to go through to get that from the town, so.
So we already, so the town of
Jeff
Manhattan
Adams can
is
do it,
basically a
like-
subdomain. It's a subdomain.
Correct.
It's called an A record, which is a host.
So what do we got to
and
get
it
approval to
can-
do that?
So it can still be
Yeah.
hosted anywhere you want, because what happens is when that URL gets entered, if Darien hosts its own stuff here, but that's WordPress or something
Yeah,
like that, and it's
okay.
hosted at Squarespace or something like that.
Okay.
It can still point there.
All right,
And
so
and
let's
so
look
it's
into
not
that.
like you're tied to now Darien IT.
Right, that I would be more
Yeah, it's,
comfortable
no.
with, because I don't know.
And I wouldn't recommend it if we were saying, okay, you now have to come under the tent of the cybersecurity of the town and the whole thing. I don't.
So, okay, it sounds like we can agree that that is a great direction. If we can pull it off with Jeff before Saturday, we will. If
And you
not-
already have it. You can launch like that and change it in a week.
Yeah.
It's
So we'll
not
look
going to
into that.
bother
Yeah.
anybody.
Okay.
Great, so we're
Okay.
gonna launch, which is fantastic, thank you. And we will coordinate with the town to get it hooked up as quickly as we
Perfect.
can. Thank you.
Just one other question about the website. So will it have the ability for residents to make comments and raise questions, or is it just a one-way information out?
At the moment, it is one way.
Okay.
And the reason for that is we did a bunch of benchmarking and cost comparisons, and as we were trying to basically, that is a supplementary service that
Okay.
we can offer, but it is expensive. As you might imagine, it requires having a staff person who basically is reliable, is trusted, has good connectivity to all of the relevant
And has the
authorities.
answers.
And has the answers,
Yeah.
and so it's quite an expensive thing to do, and I think given the cost
Well,
sensitivity here, we didn't do it
Mike, were you
yet.
talking more about, like, when I go to a webpage and it says, request more information, you can click on email, you type the subject, you type in the website, and you click send, and then it sends it to the committee.
So I think.
Is that what you're talking about, Mike?
Yeah,
If you wanted us to set it up so that people could send comments without any promise of
response.
we can do that. I think what we looked into, and which does have value but is very costly, is having someone who can really interact.
No
with people.
response
Yeah.
back. I'm
Okay.
just thinking an ability, because if this is going to be where we want people to go to see and learn what's going on there,
Yes.
I think it's elementary to also have an ability for people to make comment on what they've seen with, yes, no expectation of a response back.
And,
Yes.
And
yes.
our current webpage on the, in the town's website has our GIAC at darien.ct.gov, which is a mailing group that comes to all of us on the committee. So I think that's good communication, as far as, we're a small town, we're not the Olympic Committee, I think that would be sufficient.
Because, just to be clear, we're talking about like a box where people can submit and it simply sends an email to the committee. We're not talking about a blog where people post
No,
comments. Okay.
it just you'd get an inbox, but it would be private, the sender.
Correct.
In essence, it says contact in the upper right-hand corner. You click on contact and it has the box there.
Yes.
That
The GIAC mailbox
Yep.
is what we use.
And we're not
Yeah.
hiring an
Yeah.
FTE to monitor
Right.
No.
this.
That's what I
Right.
think that's what
Yeah.
I think that's my recommendation is we don't
even though
want to
Monica
make
asked
more.
them to respond to them all.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So is
That's
that
good.
sounds like
Monica's
there's
not paid.
consensus about this
Well, she
direction?
probably should be, right?
Okay, good. All right.
Consensus?
Yes.
Okay, great, moving on. So to the focus groups, we are in the process of, I think what we decided actually is that we want to have the event on Saturday, and then after Saturday, at the start of next week, we will send out invites to assemble around these different topics. We're going to begin with water because the water group is pretty well understood, and it's actually a smaller number of folks who have already participated a lot, and so it feels a little bit more straightforward. Then we're going to move to ecology and nature. Based on the excitement about ecology and nature on the island, it's looking like we're going to have 2 sessions for that because we think there's so many people that need to participate in the focus groups related to nature and ecology. We're going to follow that with transportation. Again, that's a little bit more straightforward about who should participate in that. Education, just because the school year is so demanding, we've actually pushed back a little bit to get all of the teachers and folks involved in education to be a little bit more feet on the ground. That will be followed by the governance and revenue. As was already noted, we've had a very successful conversation with Craig and Jeremy earlier this week already, which I think set a path for some of that understanding. We're going to be continuing those conversations and expanding that. Sorry that the youth group is so light here, but based on some of the interest from Eagle Scouts and other youth organizations here, we've actually added a youth focus group because it's really so cool that you guys have so many active, leadership-oriented young people in the town. And given that we're all, I think, focused on the future and the future of Darien with this, we just thought we really want their voices. So that's a new and exciting component here. And then we're actually going to end with history and preservation. I think everybody knows that it's absolutely like core to the identity of Great Island, that there is preservation and there are these amazing buildings, but we are very much just kicking off our deep understanding of each of these structures, and it takes a lot of time and work to be accurate in our understanding. And so before we start to talk more to people like SHPO, we want to ensure that we really have all of our facts to the extent that we're going to have them for that conversation. The specific potential invitees are listed in a packet that I'm going to send off with you guys, and our hope is that you have a chance to look over it, and if you have any suggestions or feedback, that you're able to share those suggestions with Monica. Is by Friday enough time? I think you potentially, our hope is that you can look at it pretty quickly, and if there's anyone you think is missing or something you want us to change, you let us know.
Are these we would be joining these Zooms as well to listen?
So I think what I said to, great question, thank you. One of the things that I said to Monica is that we're probably going to offer 2 times for each of these sessions to all the invitees. And that I think you are all welcome. I suspect it would be useful to have you sort of select in terms of areas of expertise or interest. I think it is okay if we don't have representation from the committee, so I don't think that this is something, we will have notes from all of them, but I think it's wonderful to have participation from you if you're available.
Will they be recorded?
We could record them, sure. If you would like
Possibly
them
watch
to,
them.
yeah,
Yeah.
we would.
At our leisure?
I think, why not? So, yes.
I think it would
questions?
be great to, I mean, first of all, I think they look great. And I think that this is why we're doing this, right? This is what the town wants to see. This is what the committee wants to see. And this is, knock on wood, going to yield a good result at the end of this exercise of the master planning. Just kind of lends itself to think that we should try to do them on the property. I mean, weather permitting. I mean, it's October.
They're by Zoom.
They're by Zoom?
They're by Zoom. So, and actually, that's a great question. We used to try to, before COVID or whatever, we used to try and always do these in person. What we have found as one of the positives, actually, post-COVID, is that when we do them by Zoom, we actually successfully get representation from pretty much every organization. Whereas before, for instance, for education, it's a lot of teachers, a lot of working parents. It's much harder to get people out to an island, whereas a Zoom, people seem to make the time. And so I think I'm going to think about what you just said, and maybe there is a
you could do
focus
both.
group walkthrough. That's what I'm wondering.
if
I don't want to bog my team down in 97 trips. But maybe there's a way that we could aggregate and say, to each of these groups, we're going to do 2 site walks, and that could be. Monica was very interested in our conversations about this. About, do you have any cross fertilization from people who are education people with the water people or anything? And maybe the walks could be a way to do that. So do you mind if I think about that and talk to my team?
I mean, we could help you with, we have Starlink that could give you, satellite internet access at the beach house, for example, to be able to have Zoom so that you can have the Zoom people and the people. So if you're sitting on the wall or on the front porch of the beach house talking about water and this property and how it all works.
It's a cool idea.
Yeah, it's
You
a cool
could,
idea.
there's, some of this stuff, can be done.
Right. Becca, do you think that it would be good for the committee members, whoever can make it, or would that impede kind of the dialogue?
It doesn't. I think ideally it would be one committee member, and that's about a balance thing. We don't want you guys to. No offense, but I think the idea is that you're gathering a bunch of experts around a topic, and they're truly expert. And I think having a more minority presence from the committee is desirable. But I think having representation is also nice. So it's not mandatory. We're going to move ahead. But if there is someone who can volunteer from the committee to be in attendance, we do see benefit in that. It's not,
That's why recording would be nice, because then we could hear it
I think
after.
the suggestion to record is excellent, yes.
Yeah.
I think being able to listen to these and listen to what members of our community are saying on each of these topics and kind of hear it firsthand, I think, at least personally, I think that would be very valuable. Whether it's live or whether it's recorded, I think it would be good. I do think it's probably be good for us to be in listen-only mode on those.
Right.
That's what I think.
It'd be good to be able to hear. And then in terms of the invitees, are these sort of individual residents, or is it only organizations within our community that we're reaching out to?
That's a great question. I think for the most part it is organizations. I think in a couple of instances, there are individuals who are sort of almost, I would say, like walking institutions that I think have come forward. We all know there's some people, right, that are just kind of like that. They know so much about something that you would want them to be involved. But I think we tried to have people who are, or to have it be more organization based.
But when it's the organization, are we asking the organization to put forth a person, or can we, if we have an organization where we know there's somebody that's can we suggest
Yes,
them?
I think it's better if a specific person is nominated, so it goes, and then if for whatever reason that person is not able to join, they can have an understudy or a
Okay.
second, so that the organization.
So the
can
committee, when
participate.
they look at these organizations, if they feel that there's somebody in
Yes.
that organization, they can do that, okay?
Yeah.
And can I just, you have September 25th, but I see up there that it's
Yeah,
actually.
this
yeah.
is, yes, we push it back.
Okay.
We had
And-
initially been trying to start some of them very quickly, and we decided that it was too rushed, so.
I apologize if you already said this, but what's the size that you're looking for these?
Great question. Anywhere between sort of 5 and 12 people. Basically, it's like having a small group
Yeah.
conversation or a seminar conversation. If it gets to be too big, it's actually frustrating for everybody. So a little bit smaller is better, but and that's why for nature, for instance, we've ended up thinking we need to have 2. Yes.
Darien-based only?
That is a good question. I think at the moment it's very Darien-centric. I think some of the organizations are a little broader, and if you are aware, for instance, with your position, that there is an entity that you think should be participating, I would say this is like shop talk a little bit. I feel like the technical review sessions that are often part of like a state project, that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. So if there's somebody that any of you know of that isn't like has knowledge that extends, or they're actually just slightly outside of Darien, but you think they would really provide valuable wisdom, please nominate
The one I'm
them.
thinking of top of head is Sound Waters.
Yeah. So I think I think exactly, something that's all about the sound.
The sound, they deliver 2 Darien children, but they're technically based in
Yeah,
Stanford.
great question.
Okay.
Any other questions on this subject? Okay, excellent. Thank you, really helpful. And so then just sharing, we basically have different design team members who will be participating. It's sort of the same thing. We don't need all of our team in all of these. It's just the people who are relevant. And then this is like a draft agenda. This is
This
you'll
is
have
all in
access-
here, right?
Yeah, so I don't think we need to go through this exactly, but
One more.
Yep.
Are these groups outside of town government, or is this where you would also pick
We
up
also will pick up town government.
town government,
Yeah.
different
So
commissions or agencies
This
or
is
whatever?
absolutely meant to be government,
Okay.
not-for-profits, any other kind of organization, that's somewhere in between. Even private organizations, if they do a lot of philanthropic work on one of these subjects, could be relevant. So then, just to get to the event on Saturday, the schedule is finally finalized. Can you read that? And basically, we are, I think I shared this already, but we're thinking that the morning is a little bit brisker. We'll be in the great auditorium. We'll be, I guess, the first people who are using your brand new IT equipment. Hopefully it's smashing success. All the indicators are that it will be. We will have coffee and some donuts. Not too much to buy there, but so first come, first serves. And we will walk through a sort of basically a primer of all the sort of categories that we're coming to understand about the island. And then we'll have the boards and activity stations in a sort of abbreviated fashion. And that's the morning session. In the afternoon, there'll be the shuttle from Pear Tree Point Beach to the stables, and I think you have, two shuttles basically, right?
Yes,
For your
and-
99. Do you want to speak to that for a minute before I keep going, or?
No, I
Okay.
think I did say that we still have 9 seats left, but I wanted to say a big thank you to Karen and Linda
Yeah.
in the First Selectman's office, who've really worked really hard on making all those reservations. But can you tell us, Becca, what you want from the committee, how we can help you?
I will. So everyone will gather at the stables, and basically we're gonna have a greeting table, which sort of is like, thanks so much for coming. And then we'll have, as you walk up to the stables right outside of the court, we're gonna have a table where people can ask questions and be sort of directed depending on what they want. We have made a giant model of the island, which will be in the center of the court, and we'll have a bunch of sort of activities and questions around that. And then we're going to have our boards, which are sort of expert stations underneath the eave as you walk around the outskirts. So we think some people won't be interested in details, and they may not go and talk to our experts, and they'll just have this sort of social activity. There will be a children's activity. We're going to have a kind of chalk activity because the asphalt there makes a good canvas. And then we also have tours, guided tours that are going to be set up. There are 3 of those, but given that it sounds like, if I understood this correctly, the formal vote to open the bridal trails will not be occurring before Saturday, we were going to ask this committee if you would basically each of you be open to leading people on a tour of the bridal path, so that invitation, which I think we feel to be a really important part of this event, can be fulfilled, even though formally the bridal trails weren't. So we sort of imagine that there'll be basically a continuous loop with you guys kind of leaving in a relay as people are interested. And it may be, I mean, I think we don't, at the moment, it might be drizzling. I don't know, it's like, it looked like it was in perfect weather, and then I checked about 2 hours ago.
Just
and
now
it's
it
like,
says 15% chance of.
Yeah,
rain.
It looks
exactly.
good. Right now, it looks great.
15?
I just checked
Well,
it.
did it, so it looks good, so, anyway, it was looking like it was gonna rain,
Yeah.
and then it's been looking like it's gonna be sunny, and now it's like, I don't know. So, it's a little bit hard to know if there's gonna be a huge amount of appetite to actually make that walk, but that is our big request to all of you, if you can be sort of on hand as your schedules are flexible or not, to help us get everyone to enjoy the bridal trails. And I know many of you have other commitments already, but I know many of you have been planning to be there. So that is our specific request.
Okay.
And just to be good, I mean, I think our experience with these events is we want everyone to really feel welcome. And so I think that's it, like, to the extent that it's like you're, at a party and you try and talk to everybody and answer their questions or guide them to one of the people on the design team who might know how to answer a question if you don't know how to. We're hoping that you can help us with that, basically.
Becca, maybe just for the afternoon session, if we send out emails reminding about the
Yeah.
bus, just remind people to wear sort of comfortable boots.
Yes, comfortable shoes.
To walk
I would
and
bring
sit
a windbreaker or something, and a hat. So,
Yeah, you know what, so Linda and Karen are doing the reservations, but I know at the bus tour that they reminded people
Yeah.
that it could rain, and so they probably did that.
and comfortable walking shoes, because that terrain is still going to be a little uneven. Any other questions about this? Okay, well, we're excited. Each of the boards, each of the subjects will have some specific questions that we're going to be seeking feedback and input on. There'll be a kind of general welcome to everybody with more general questions, and then specific questions to really try and get the conversation going about what kinds of activities, pros and cons, some of the things that we talked about. I feel like I was starting to talk too fast. I'll slow down. Some of the questions related to what people most want to see in terms of activities or hopes here. The water, we are really interested in hearing people's interest for either swimming or the shellfish beds or what kind of boat access, just being a little bit more specific. If the idea that there could be a sailing program, something like that, is that really interesting to people? Access, I think we really want to hear more about how much interest and excitement there is for things. I feel like I already see a lot of strollers there, so I think having surfaces that are good for strollers seems important, but what extent sort of universal access all the way out to the water's edge is of interest to people or not? Questions like that, like where are we really going to put investment as we think about expanding access? For ecology and nature, I did have the chance with George Knight and Felicia on my team to go out on a boat last week, and I was totally moved and blown away by the amount of birds that we saw. I don't think I had fully understood how stunning and rare the ecology is. It really is, it felt like a bird preserve. So I think there is, and I know that we're learning more about this, and I know, I shared this with Monica, but when we came to drop off signs last week, a gentleman approached us and said he's one of the people who really watches birds there, and he was sort of detailing different species and some of the concerns. And I just think it does seem really important to your community, and it feels really rare in my experience in such an urban and developed area to have the habitat that you have. So we're imagining we'll have lots of people say things about that. history and architecture, it's very sweet. We were trying to limit Knight Architects to just 3 boards about the architect. I think they have 5, they might have 6. There's just so much to share, and they have had so much fun going to the Historical Society and, you know, walking with Ned, and just the treasure trove of images and information about the architecture is really extraordinary. And so just getting people excited about that and understanding it, and also sharing some of the challenges related to accessibility and the coastal regulations that we've been learning, and so that people, like, on the one hand can appreciate the architecture but also understand the enormous financial and regulatory investment that may be required to keep some of these structures. So then we will be launching our general survey for everybody, which will be online, have the barcode. It will be open for 3 weeks. So we'll close on, I think it, wrote the date down, but it's something like October 16th. I feel like I lost my note. October 12th, I think it is. It will close, but it'll be exactly 3 weeks after it opens.
So Becca, can people access that via the scan or
Yeah.
at the new website we're going to launch?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
But in theory, we're really looking for just people who have participated in the session to respond because they've been there and heard the
I think actually it will be open to, I think our hope is that every person who comes to the session does fill out the survey,
Right.
so that we get this core group of 99 people, and anyone who walks on who really has experienced it. I think if we can get each and every one of them to fill it out, we'll be really, really happy with that. I don't actually think we are going to close it beyond that.
Yeah, that's where I was going with it, because I saw you said close October 15th, and I know we're doing 4 sessions, and if we're looking for feedback from people that haven't even done the session yet.
We will do a new survey with each one of our outreach events. So this one is very focused on this sort of starting phase.
Okay.
But I don't actually want to limit it to only people who are able to come to one of the 2 sessions. We want it to be on the website, and if people, I mean, our hope would be that anyone who does it does look at the website and tries to read the boards and sort of takes the time to really be serious in the way they engage, but we don't want to be excluding people from
No,
connecting.
plenty of people have accessed the site who won't be coming to those sessions.
Exactly,
Right.
and so
Everybody has a right.
And we've gone through the survey. I mean, you can answer it. If you've been to the island and you have ideas as to
Yes.
what you want for the island and what you think about it currently.
yes, it's meant to be pretty straightforward and not like a high barrier to response.
Yeah, I mean, historic with a master plan and some of the other surveys we've done, we've had a very high response rate, and outside firms that have worked with us who do these have always commented on how engaged the community was and how
I'm
high a
impressed
response rate
with the community
is.
and its sort of sense that it should participate in all these decisions. So
Yeah,
yes,
so I would
we're
think-
anticipating that.
Yeah,
we'll get
I would think a lot of
yeah.
people would.
Yeah.
And that, one of the firms we were, they had a way to sort of like check the addresses, so for instance, somebody isn't responding multiple times or different.
Yeah,
kind
I
of
think
things like
I think
that.
it's pretty. I'm not actually our technical survey expert, but I think we have found the controls for that are pretty good.
Pretty
So-
good, or people have multiple email, I mean, you know, I've got 3 email addresses, most of you probably do, and, you know, are people responding multiple times?
Yeah.
That would be a good problem to have. Too many responses.
I agree. So in terms of
Not the same person.
the survey, when we next meet at our next session, we will have probably some preliminary. The survey will have just closed, so we probably won't have gone through like a truly thorough evaluation, but we'll have some preliminary results that we'll share with you, and then we'll go through a more sort of qualitative exercise and share out that. And for our next large outreach, we'll be sharing back to the whole community what we learned. So then in terms of what we're seeking to do or what our next steps or deliverables are, after the event on Saturday, we will basically, it'll probably take us about 2 weeks to go through all the comments and categorize them and evaluate it. It is not 100% scientific kind of thing because you don't get like thumbprints, and it isn't like it's much more like we got 42 people who said they care about dogs and 17 who said they care about turtles, and we'll just share that with you, but we'll try and basically interpret it to the best of our ability.
It's a survey, not a ballot.
It's exactly, yeah, great point. And I think there'll also be some things that people will make that we'll share with you, drawings and things like that, and so that will all be part of this. So you can expect that we'll start to share both findings from our experts, like James Lima, as they're going through the process of sort of benchmarking all of this, and then Biohabitats is started their desktop review. Someone will be on site for Biohabitats tomorrow. So I think at our next meeting, we'll be giving you a sort of interim report about all of our findings of all of this. And then we are thinking that we want the next workshop to be, I think it's November 9th. And I think based on our sense of how this goes this weekend, we'll want a determination from all of you. And I think we'll try and have consensus about, I think this might need to be early. You may need to do a sweep of people's opinions about whether we want it to be on the island or just at town hall. So we may do a sort of informal poll at the end of the day on Saturday about, do we want to go through the effort of trying to get everybody back out onto the island in November, or do we want to keep it a little bit more streamlined and straightforward and just do it at town hall?
Can you just nutshell what the agenda of the second workshop would be?
Yeah, so the second workshop we will, and it's a little bit early because, as I said, like, we need to do Saturday and we need to have the survey.
Just broadly, where are we in the discussion?
So for the November workshop, we will have scenarios, and we will probably have 3, and they will reflect different things that we've heard and learned from this process. But we will basically be trying to say, look, there's a version whereby it's low investment, it's low governance, it's sort of slower and incremental in the way that we work toward the future. There could be, there's another one, I think, where it's like, look, you have all these structures, you have all of this potential. It's going to take more investment faster, and you're going to need real partners. And so they'll be like, these are potential partners and or avenues for you to kind of retain everything that's there and bring it up to public level of engagement and service, which is a much probably higher cost future and more intense future. And then I think we probably will, this is just based on what I'm seeing now, we probably will have a scenario which is much more about a kind of nature, foregrounding nature, and sort of saying maybe it's just like 1 or 2, like you have a little bit of boating, you have some kind of nature organization, but for the most part, it's as low infrastructure and low cost and really pro-ecology. I'm not sure, I mean, we have to get through, but that's my sense, is that we will sort of have assembled these 3 different paths, and we'll be trying to have a conversation about which really seems to be gaining more traction in terms of what the town most sees as beneficial for the island. And there'll be more guardrails. I think, Retailed Room will say to you, this is a little bit like what we were doing even with the matrix that we showed, I think it was last week, but there are certain things that if you do, like that you just shouldn't do. There's certain things that you have to do to take care of this amazing asset, things you just shouldn't do, and then this is still a whole garden of forking paths that we endorse and we support as your experts that we want you to talk about seriously. So that's basically the kind of, and we need to learn more about what's successful in these conversations, about how we tune that conversation for the community. Any other questions or discussion right now?
This was good, thank you.
Great.
Okay, thanks, Becca.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's finishes up number 5. Okay, so now we're going to go to the motion that Jim has on the floor, and we're in the discussion phase, correct?
Well, the motion was already done, we added something to the agenda, so if we're now on that item in the agenda, so the reason I asked to add that to the agenda is we all just listened to, it's uber important that we get folks on the island to start seeing the island so that we can collect better feedback. My view was always the more people feel, see, touch, walk around, spend time on the island, the better feedback we're all going to get, Becca's going to get, and these surveys will kind of be more accurate and helpful. So as part of that, the reason I asked to have this item added to the agenda is that there were 4 things that I thought we should do in order to expand that access so that we can make all this public outreach be as effective as possible. The first was open up the Bridal Trail, and I think we just voted on that like 30 minutes ago. The second one was to recommend to the Board of Selectmen that the polo field be open to the public as part of the early access rules and regulations they have, as soon as staff completes any necessary changes or improvements that need to be made to that. Now, presumably, since I think we're hosting a polo event in, I think, 4 weeks down there, the expectation is that that'll happen fairly soon, and Ed and Tony and their crew will kind of have that ready. So that was the first thing, to open up the polo field, or what's generally known as the polo field, to the public. The second one was to open up what I kind of call like the back lawn, the area, I think you had a picture up there, that stretches from the sort of northeast corner of the lawn, northeast of where the old tennis courts used to be, stretches down between the mansion and the water, wraps around, includes that great little area, the beautiful area down there by the statues where people can kind of sit and look at the water, right? And kind of goes right up to the gate right there where you come out on the main, on the loop right there.
One second, sorry to interrupt. It might be helpful,
Yeah,
can we put the map back
Yeah.
on? And Jim, if
Absolutely.
you want, I actually even wanted to point out
Absolutely.
this area. I have a good idea
Yeah.
of what the polo area looks like,
So-
but as you were just describing in words, maybe you could also
Yeah,
just point to what you.
I'm happy to do that.
One moment, Mike.
Thank you.
Maybe not in your chair. Unless you got a pointer or laser.
No, I don't have that.
You may want to stay there for the microphone unless that one's on. Right?
I think he put that one on.
I can
That
speak
one's on,
on
okay. Yeah, well,
So I'll point out that area, and then,
Everybody just, I have to excuse myself because I have my regular commission meeting in 12 minutes. So I have to get.
right here would be perfect. So my suggestion was, and again, this is to request that the Board of Selectmen change the early access in order to open it up as soon as these two fine gentlemen here are able to do like the last couple of things that they need to do. So again, what I call like the polo fields, right, are basically like this area right here, kind of bounded by like this road right here and this, but to open that up as soon as it's ready, and any necessary things that you need to make.
Area number 2, really.
Yeah, so number 2. The other one would be sort of, I already mentioned the Bridal Trail, but we voted on that earlier, and I think in a similar fashion, that's gonna be opened up as soon as you guys finish like the last couple, kind of wheelbarrow fulls and stuff there. The third one would be this area right here, basically down there, around, and up to there, because folks can walk back through the back right here. I mean, these are like absolutely the best views. I mean, I feel like that view itself is worth $85 million. But folks can come all the way back here and walk right back and connect on that trail to come back. So that area right there was the other area I thought should be opened up. I know it sounds like we're partway through taking up the remnants of like the curb of the tennis courts.
yeah.
Finished, okay, so, whatever stuff needs to be done there, and it's not perfectly flat. I mean, that's not a putting green by anyone's view, but I do think this will be a great thing to kind of walk around on. So between this, and the Bridal
The
path.
beach area, I think you had.
The
The
what?
beach area?
So with respect to the beach area, that's coming down here. That's the other area I'd like to see opened up. But I do think we should make it clear that this is not open to swimming, right? But so that fourth area right there is something I think we should open up, and it'd be great to really get people to look down there. I mean, when people talk about a beach, I think it's good for them to be able to walk down there and really see kind of what that is, but also what it isn't. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the last piece is, having opened all this up, I'd really like to see residents be able to bring their dogs, or pets, I guess, and be able to walk around back here. Now, this is something that we could request that the Board of Selectmen do for the winter, and we could always decide to kind of repeal this in the spring. But that's the other piece, and the reason why I bring up the pets thing, I mean, full disclosure, I have a dog, but I feel like that gets more people out there. The number of people that said, you know, I walk my dog every single day, but if I could bring it out on the island, I do those walks out there, and I feel like we're at the point right now where we want to get more people, more of our 21,000 residents who paid for this, we want to get them out on the island. So I feel like beginning to allow the dogs, just as we do in other parks, would be another great way to kind of get them out there. So those were like the 4 areas, one of which we already did, and then the dogs were what I was going to recommend that we propose that the Board of Selectmen enhance the early access to include.
I mean, we've talked about this in the last few meetings. Obviously, I've spoken about this in support of opening these areas. I guess it really comes down to what are the mechanics of it, you know, how logistically. I mean, just from trying to read the room, I think there's a lot of people at this table that agree with what you're saying, Jim. And so mechanically, how does that, like, so what you just said is you say, okay.
The suggestion was to instruct the Board of Selectmen, or request that the Board of Selectmen open up these 4 areas and add pets, and subject to staff who also has day jobs, kind of doing everything else in town, finishing any changes or improvements or similar to what they're doing on the Bridal Trail, and have it
So
open.
you want to get in front of it, and like we've kind of been coming behind it a little bit,
Yeah.
saying like, okay, the Bridal Trail is ready for safe access.
Yes.
And then we're sending it to the Board of Selectmen saying, please vote on that Board of Selectmen if you agree with us. And then, with this, you're saying, we don't think that it's necessarily ready tomorrow.
What I want to do is the opposite. So what happened is our staff have been working, you know, hard to open up the Bridal Trail before we ever voted on it. And so they're spending their time, which is also our town's resources, opening that up. What I want to do for these other areas is say, we want to recommend to the Board of Selectmen to open these up, and we're all in favor of it, and the Board of Selectmen would hopefully support that, and then staff would know they're spending time working on stuff that this committee and the Board of Selectmen have told them they want to open up. Because like right now, I mean, technically, right, they could have done all this work on the Bridal Trail over the past couple weeks, and half an hour ago, we could have said, no, we don't want to open it up yet. So I'm trying to get ahead of it,
Right.
recommend to the Board of Selectmen that we open up these other areas as soon as staff makes any necessary fixes to those areas that are required.
I see the logic in that, saying that these are our priorities. We'd like these areas open as soon as it's administratively, you know, doable. I mean, I'm comfortable with that. I think certainly it's hard intellectually to not open that polo field pretty darn quick, since we're about to have a major event there. It's open now, and now it's closed. So I think if we're going to try and prioritize, I think that polo field needs to be open certainly very soon after that event. And I'm on record about, you know, the dogs. I mean, I fully support allowing dogs on the island, subject to the rules that we have for them everywhere else.
Mike, not to interrupt, I should have said it, allowing dogs on leash at all times,
Right.
and asking staff to put up some of those little baskets where you get the poop
Right.
containers
Uh,
or bags.
I mean, that's, I'll just react to that, and then the other thing, because I know we'll get, you know, kicked out of, you know, at 7:30 or whatnot, but, and maybe we can do this on the Board of Selectmen, but assuming, I was looking over our regs, but assuming that we open the bridle path, there are probably just a couple of other of those rules that don't make any sense anymore.
Right.
You know, and we don't have to do that
Right.
here, but, like, no, we should make sure, obviously, that those bridle paths are not within, you know, what was it, 50 feet of any of the houses, because the rules that we say now is he can't come within 50 feet. So I don't think that's a problem, but we would need to change that. And number 8 on that list under the general category was, don't bother the horses, which
Right.
they're horses anymore. So I
Right.
think it just kind of
Right,
looks
we
silly to have
definitely,
it, but we could-
there were some things to
Yeah.
clean up.
Okay.
So, I think we do want to vote on this, and I support opening up these areas, as long as the suggestions that Dan and Mike and Bruce put together are approved by our first selectman and our town administrators as far as providing adequate safety for our community. Again, I know that the dog issue is, the dog question is a really important one, and I think that we should definitely address that. I would ask that we wait until we have the survey results back. We have, I think it's really important to listen to both sides of the story on this, and we will, if we move forward on this, there will be people that will be very disappointed that we didn't take their opinions into consideration. So I would support opening up the areas. I don't support asking the Board of Selectmen to allow dogs at this time.
Okay, well, since we only have 5 minutes, I'll make a motion that we recommend to the Board of Selectmen to open up the area generally known as 2, 3, and 4, and that we ask them to allow dogs on the island, subject to the leash rules and so forth. Does anyone want to second that motion, or?
For the dog part.
You what?
Let's split the dogs out, I would vote for it, but.
Yeah.
All right.
I'd just like to
two
hear a
votes.
little bit more from the consultants and the public.
I'd like to hear from the, I'm a dog owner out for the record.
Okay.
I would like to have dogs out
So
there.
just
but
going
I'd
to
like
4
to-
minutes.
I'd
There's a
like to-
motion on the table.
Yep.
The next step, is there a second for that motion? Is a second for that motion. Is there any?
Discussion.
Okay, is there any discussion on that motion, which included, let's say, 4 things?
Yes. How do we, so if we're going to, assuming that this is going to go forward and this is going to, no pun intended, pave the way for more access, right? Then we need, people are now going to be able to come bring a blanket and their lunch and sit on the front lawn or the back lawn or whatever you want to call it, the lawn. And people are going to want to bring their double stroller and push their kids around and stuff like that. So we still don't have a place for them to park. How do we get approval? What do we need to do to get drawings for a temporary parking lot, to move forward so that we can show up on that screen a proposal or a concept or something? Because we keep talking about it and we say, heads nod, and we say, okay, it's going to happen at some time. But I mean, if we're going to move the ball down the field on access, we can't not talk about
Right.
a parking lot and start at least saying, okay, it could go here, let's sketch it out, let's see if that works. And then it's got to go through approvals, all sorts of approvals before we can even bid it or
Right.
do it.
Bruce,
So I think
that's
we need to start.
I think that's an important thing, but I think right now we're talking about where they can go once they get on. I think how they get on and where they park is another issue, but I think just given that we
Yeah.
now have 2 minutes left.
You guys have been in public life for a long time.
Yeah.
I haven't. I don't really know exactly the mechanics of how we get
You
to
know
the
what, Bruce?
point of
Bruce, we will put
sketching
that,
it.
Bruce, we will put that on the agenda for next
Okay, all right, cool.
next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have 30 seconds. So I'm completely fine with open access. I like the idea of saying things are open except for, as opposed to just cordoning off areas. A couple of things about this is that it's not an insurance question, it's really a visitor and resident safety question, to make sure that as this gets opened up, that we put signs in the sensitive areas to just keep people out of trouble. I like the idea of a process around this. So if you come to the Board of Selectmen, what I would expect to see is that you were thoughtful about all the aspects that surround opening this up. Bathrooms, trash cans, dog poo bags, activities that you don't want to have on the island, right? Not the ones to, but these things you cannot do. And then to Becca's very good point, what's your answer on ecology and wildlife and all that? I'm not saying that that precludes access, but just a plan in front of the Board of Selectmen that says we thought about this and this and this and this and this and this. You can be comfortable voting for access because we were careful about all that. So if you come to us with a plan that has those elements or those boxes checked, I'm completely fine with that, and it's a go.
But we don't have that plan right now for Monday.
That's the problem. So you take it to the Board of Selectmen, I'm not going to vote. I got nothing to vote on, right? But if you come back and says, we want this access, we're including all access except these things, we've checked on these things in terms of resident safety, security, bathrooms, trash, we all think that's good, done.
But don't we have that already since we're opening up the bridal trails?
Well, based on what she said, in terms of just ecology and all that, there were a number of unresolved issues, like dogs on the island during mating season and all. I'm not saying that that needs to preclude access, but I think it's not unreasonable to say, did you guys check all that before we let people on? Because Monica's central point is, we don't want to grant something and say, oh, we forgot this and have to take it away because of some problem. Just go through and make sure we check that box. It's not going to take weeks. It could take a week to do that. Take that to the Board of Selectmen, we can vote on that. And I'm ready to be fully supportive right now.
So for the polo field, we're having an event on it. I don't know if that requires that same plan checklist.
Well,
No, it's a
I would
one-time
assume
event,
that-
so, no, just like we're having an event at the stables, and the stables will be open on Saturday, the stables won't be open on Sunday. So don't let the polo event throw you.
But can we answer all those questions that John raised, which are good ones, relative to the polo event on that field?
That's what I meant. Why don't we
Yeah.
just propose that?
I think in theory, we've already, whatever we're doing as part of the polo event to prevent like ecology and all that other type of stuff.
Okay,
Let's just
you
have
know
that
what?
be part of.
Okay,
Well, and we said that, Dan and I this morning, it's like, we follow best practices at all of our parks and all of our buildings, right? So I think we need to follow best practices for these areas too.
right. Well, the people outside are waiting to
Okay, so what's
appeal.
the discussion? It's been
Discussion.
seconded already,
Yeah,
so
second.
we
So is there any
vote.
more discussion on this?
Does it include dogs, this motion?
Yes, it includes 2, 3, 4, and dogs.
Gotcha.
I would just say if there's a way to prioritize more discussion on this, special meeting, whatever it needs to be, I think that would be something I would have interest
I
in.
support that. I feel that we need to bring this to a head. I'm not sure where we are at this moment, but I'd be supportive of reconvening to settle this if we can't resolve it tonight.
So in terms of the motion, if you don't feel that there's enough information to vote yes,
Yep.
then you can vote no. It doesn't preclude it from being brought up at a very soon-to-follow meeting.
So I guess, or we could table the motion if we're going to have sort of a special meeting to address this like next week or like very, so we can get.
Or why don't we
this-
do that, since the motion's already been approved? Why don't we
Good-
table the
good idea.
motion instead of making an outcome determinative vote on it?
And because we're out of time.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you what, I will table the motion to open up those 3 areas and to include dogs, with the expectation that we can have a special meeting next week as soon as we, like, John had some very good questions. If we
I'll
can
write it
get,
up
sort
and
of,
send it to you.
work with him to kind of get ahead of all those, maybe have a special meeting in the next,
Sure.
week or so.
And we'll have all that in place when we vote next time.
Okay,
Yep.
I'll table my motion.
Okay.
But thank you guys for all your discussion.
With that said, any other? Okay, may I have a
One
motion? May I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor?
When you signal-